Greetings, programs, and welcome back to your weekly episode of the Awesome Friday podcast. I am your host, Matthew, and with me, as is standard operating procedure, is Simon. How are you, Simon?
I'm good, thank you. I was just thinking about an analogy between pirates and parrots, but I don't really want to be your parrot. Like every good pirate needs a parrot, and maybe that's position. Oh fuck it! Can you restart? I'm just...
No.
Actually, don't bother restarting. Okay,
No.
we're not restarting.
We're not restarting that. I'm just going to let you flounder. I'm a great host, so I'm going to let you flounder, sir.
As co-host of the Awesome Friday podcast, I sometimes wish I were able to make small talk. I can talk about movies and games for as long as you want. When going out with Matt in a social situation where he knows nobody, I'm an introvert and I have trouble making small talk, and so I hate situations where you walk into a room and you don't know anyone. Matt, on the other hand, just walks in. He's just fucking, oh hi guys, how's it going? Let's think. I've got a million things to talk about, and they're all interesting. And everyone's like, oh, you're really interesting. And then I'm in the corner. If there's a corner, I'm in it with a dog, or like where the food is, and I'm there like, yeah, would you like to talk about Star Wars?
First off, no one thinks everything I has to say is interesting, not even me.
Yeah, but you're tall and you have that voice, so you kind of sound interesting.
And also, like, I'm an introvert also. I just also have 20 years of sales experience. I am an introvert. I'm the type of introvert who is like perfectly happy to go into a social situation, and then as soon as I get home, I will curl up into a ball and tell my wife to leave me alone for 2 hours.
So you're actually an ambivert, my friend. You are a classic ambivert. You can do both things. It is. I had to look it up. I had to look it up recently. The man who teaches the language for a living has to look up a new word. I didn't know this word until recently. It's ambivert, means you exhibit both sides. You are able to do social stuff without problem, but you also need to recharge like an introvert. And I'm so heavy on the recharge. I hate the. And considering my whole job for 15 years has been walking into rooms of strangers and trying to engage with them, it's been pretty difficult. But yes, hello, welcome to the podcast.
That's an interesting word, actually. It reminds me of one of my weird favorite words is bidialectic, which means that which is used to describe someone such as John Barrowman, famous for as Captain Jack Harkness for Doctor Who, and Gillian Anderson, famous for all of the things. Both of those people have natural American and British accents, which I think is super interesting because they like John Barrowman,
the guy from Battlestar as well. What was his name?
Jamie Bamber. Yeah, he has an American mother and a British father, and he just wherever he is, that's what the accent that he has. And they're both. He's not putting one on; he has them both, and I think that's super interesting.
It's very useful for an actor, as I keep trying to tell my kids who I'm trying to force into acting. My daughter's English accent is like a clipped Sense and Sensibility accent, and it's beautiful. Like she'll work no problem anywhere with that accent. My son sounds like Dick Van Dyke, but like worse than Dick Van Dyke. My son makes Dick Van Dyke sound like a naturalized English speaker. I've never heard a worse English accent from anyone than my son.
The best description of Dick Van Dyke's British accent is that it's a great Cockney accent he went to Australia to
learn. So you can then imagine how bad my son's is if it makes him look good. Like it's truly
It's actually just funny because I distinctly remember when your son was young and learning to speak and wasn't like around other people. He definitely had British inflection.
Absolutely, that's the problem, man.
Yeah, it's all gone from school, I imagine. But.
That's the problem. Like, we're the only weirdos in his life, and it's weird to remember that because when your kids grow up, you think they're going to sound like you, and then to have two kids that sound like you, I'm pointing at the screen, and then you remember that we're the only two people out of the hundreds of people they interact with that really sound like this, and they know other English people, but they are so Canadian in everything. In the way they describe things and all their little inflections, and they won't say water. They refuse to say water. or Harry Potter. They think it's hilarious when we dare to pronounce things in the mother tongue. But
I mean, I hate to break it to you, but your children are Canadian. I mean, I know it's a shock given that they
I
were
know.
born here and have lived their entire lives here.
And schooled here.
Um,
Yeah, I that was our mistake for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And as a result, they're both super outdoorsy, especially my son. And I'm English, and I'm not outdoorsy at all. My son's like randomly, "Hey, Dad, do you want to go and play like extreme frisbee?" I'm like, I don't want to do. I'm 46. I don't want to do anything that's prefaced by the word extreme anymore. He's like, "Hey, Dad, can you take me fishing?" I'm like, "Let me just call Matt." Because like as I've told you before, I need you to take my son fishing because I don't know how to fish. I went
Oh, yeah.
lobstering once. Like all the things he wants to do, he loves camping. He loves like climbing up mountains and throwing himself off them, and like sledding and skiing. And I'm just like, look, I'm just. If you were an English kid now, you'd be like 12 stone and gulping coke out of a bottle. Let's just go. Let's have a bit more of that, shall we? But no, he
Uh,
is super slender and healthy, and he loves it, which is a gift. Canadian children grow up knowing treating exercise like a treat, whereas for me it was treated as a punishment, and it's a massive massive difference when you become an adult. But hey
yeah.
ho.
I mean, this is all very much like the movies, but yeah. I mean, I agree.
Oh come on. It really is though, isn't it? Because this is why I know so much about movies, because I am so lazy. I
That's
like
true.
to sit and watch them.
That's true. So do I. Sitting and watching movies is great. Although, interestingly, I'm having a really hard time making it back to cinemas these days, which is why so many of our episodes are to do with streaming releases and
Yeah.
video on demand releases. Because the thought of sitting in a room full of people at this point is just really exhausting. And
So compounded, I absolutely agree with you. And the X problem I have is that I either pay for 4 people to go and all the food, or we 2 people for go and then you pay for a babysitter as well. And the cinema, going to the cinema has become so prohibitively expensive. It is now. We used to go a lot more, but it just seems everything's so much more expensive now. And Vancouver as a city is expensive anyway. And what with it, the economy being the dumpster fire it is at the moment, we just can't afford it. And you're right, because things, excuse me, things are coming out and streaming so fast now that you think, well, what's the point? I'll just wait a month and then it'll be on my TV and I can make popcorn and sit with my family for $30 instead of spending 120 and going out with a room full of people.
yeah, people who are going to talk and at least at home, like if if we can interrupt the movie, we can pause it. Which
Right?
I personally hate pausing the movie. I like the first time through. I like to like experience it from front to back as much as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
it's less of a burden when like if the person you're going to the movies with needs to go to the bathroom and they come back and they're lost. You can just pause it. You can just
Yeah.
pause it. And like there's no asshole three rows ahead of you to the two seats to the right. Videotaping the fucking movie. Um,
Yeah.
which like honestly like first off, don't steal movies. Like it's not good. It's not a good thing. Like it's theft is you're stealing. You're just stealing, and it's a whole conversation around it. But also, put your fucking phone away in the theater. Like that's my actual
Mm.
concern. I don't want you to steal the movie because I don't want prices for movies to go up. But also, I just want to be able to watch the movie undistracted. So if you want to
Yeah,
record the movie, get the 10 a.m. show that no one else is at, man. Like, at least do that for me.
it's not even just recording a movie. Like the idea that you don't text during a film is utterly alien now, and it happens every single movie I go to now, and it makes me so furious that I can't even. It's not just distracting. I can't concentrate on the film because someone is texting on their phone, and you can see the light a mile off, obviously. But the one of the last movies I went to before the pandemic, there was a group of maybe 5 late teens in front of me who were texting during the film, and I told them not to. And because I've been, the problem is I was a teacher for 16 to 18-year-olds for a long time. So the inner teacher in me, the Tyler Durden, comes out and I lose track that I can't just talk to everyone like they're a student, and so they weren't happy that I was repeatedly telling them to put their phones away, because in their mind it's completely normal to text during a movie now. If you watch a
Yep.
movie at home, people I know watch movies while texting, and I'm like, I don't like, that's, you're either watching the movie or you're on your device. Like, that you've got to engage with what's in front of you, and that's come up a few times in my house as well.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. And like scrolling TikTok or Instagram reels or whatever to you, oftentimes you'll see like people like live reaction to the movie, and it's like fucking put your phone down and
Mm,
watch the movie. You know, like it's
yeah.
fucking. Anyway,
How old do we sound right now?
I don't know, but my knee is all swole up, so there's definitely a storm coming. You know, it's anyway. Speaking of digital devices, that's as good a segue as any into our first film of the show.
That's a beautiful, beautiful segue,
Is
actually.
it? It's. I mean, it's fine. It's adequate to
Oh,
the cast.
it's no, no, it's good for the movie we're about to talk about. It's perfect.
That's true. We are going to talk about the 2023 release, Missing, which came out in January, I believe, and has just been released on demand. So we both finally got a chance to catch up with it. This is actually, Simon. Why don't you give us the rundown on
Sure.
Missing? Because you watched it slightly more recently than I did.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Uh, so missing is around someone who goes missing. Surprisingly, you, Grace Allen is a woman who is separated. Well, not separated. Sorry, has uh, who is single now because her husband died of cancer when her daughter June was very young. And cut to 10 years later, June's like 18 now, played by Storm Reid, who is wonderful, and she's got a difficult relationship with her mum and her mum's new boyfriend Kevin. And Father's Day is coming up, and it's very difficult for her. But and her mum reveals that she's going away to Colombia with Kevin for a holiday, and she's left her at home, and her friend Heather is going to look in on her. So it starts with that conflict that June's not very happy with any of this. Really, she doesn't have an open, loving relationship with her mum. She has a difficult relationship with the person who is now in place of her dad, and she really, really, really misses her dad and looks at this old footage of him. And she is also planning to throw this huge party while they're away. So she's trying to surreptitiously organize all this as well. And one of the last thing the mum says to her is, "Don't forget to pick us up at 11 on Monday." And of course, she sleeps in, and she gets there at 11, and she's waiting, and they don't get off the plane from Colombia. And this begins basically this whole detective story of June trying to find out where her mum and mum's boyfriend, where they are. Like, why did they not get off the plane? Why, when she contacts the hotel, the suitcase is still there? And I'm not going to go any further into it, because it's kind of it's one of those really quite satisfying detective stories where the pieces sort of
Yeah.
gradually unfold. It's very satisfying to watch. The interesting thing about this whole movie, and I haven't seen Searching, which is I believe the same directors, but it's all shot from the view of cameras on our devices. So a lot of the film is us basically from June's viewpoint, really looking at her screen. She does everything on her Mac. She calls people, she uses FaceTime, she obviously uses the internet. And the whole movie is us watching these screens either on her Mac or on security cameras or through her phone. And
Hmm.
it's both a very clever device that I I'm not totally convinced it's works for the whole film. It's the first film I've seen that's shot in this style, because I haven't seen Searching. I know you have. So at the
Yeah.
beginning it was a bit of an adjustment. I'm not sure if I loved it, but I thought it was super interesting as
Yeah.
a technique.
That's I think it. That's a fair response. It's definitely a different way to tell a story. It's not the first time it's been done, or even the second time, because I know there's been other films like that. But it's technically it is different directors, but the same team is involved. Like the same people are involved, but different people directed it. Will Merrick and Nick Johnson, as opposed to Sev Ahanian and Anish Chaganti, who did the first one, who did Searching. Um, but yeah, it's a really interesting device, and it can be a bit hard to follow. I would say that Searching probably has a better introduction to it. Like the beginning of Searching legitimately made me cry, because Searching is sort of the opposite. Searching is John Cho searching for his lost daughter. Missing is the daughter searching for her lost mother. So there's an inversion there, and much of the setup is the same. But you're right. This is it's a very they're both actually very satisfying mysteries, and I don't know, you hadn't seen Searching, so if you didn't
Mm.
notice it at the very beginning of Missing, she's watching a true crime series, and there's it's the case of, I can't remember the name they use, but there's like an Asian man with a blanket with police all around him, and that's a dramatization of Searching that she's watching. So it's the same universe, which is interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Um, and I think it has a lot to do with the performers involved, as with Searching, in which John Cho is just wonderful. Storm Reid basically carries the whole movie on her back, and she's incredible in it. Really, 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 really good at engaging with the material and the um, the way the film is shot, the central sort of conceit about how it's shot, and also I don't know if they like. I'm sure they didn't actually do FaceTime, but every time she has to interact with someone via a camera, which is everyone she interacts with, save one person, um, she's just so convincing, and so is everyone on the other end. Like, um, Nia Long is great in this movie, but in particular, I would single out Joaquim de Almeida, who is another
Oh,
character
yeah.
actor who you've seen in tons of stuff. The things that spring to mind for me are always Clear and Present Danger from the 90s and Fast Five, in
Mm.
which he's the villain. Or more recently, he was in The Hitman's Bodyguard. Uh, and he's always good. Like, he's one of those guys who, like Ken Leung, who's also in this movie, who when he shows up, you're like, oh, hey, it's that guy. I love that guy. But he's so wonderful as Javier, as Javi, this guy who in Colombia that um, Storm Reid like basically task rabbits to like do errands and investigate for her, and their whole like relationship, her searching for her mother, and it turns out that he has like a fraught relationship with his son, and they sort of bond over that through the course of the film. And they're like back and forth, even though they like never technically share a space. Their back and forth is kind of amazing. Like they're both so they just work together, right? They have such good chemistry despite
Yeah.
again not sharing any space. I don't know. I really enjoyed this movie. I think, probably speaking, I think I enjoyed Searching just a little bit more, just because
Mm-hmm.
of it being, the newness of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're both super well executed. I think Missing is a great film to just like throw on. You're like, oh, I want to watch a good mystery story. You should probably throw on Missing. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it feels kind of old fashioned, really. Like it in the way that the central protagonist, if I could say it, slowly finds the links from one thing to the next, and you can see her kind of her face making the connection, and it's written quite nicely in that for me anyway, the audience is kind of given the clue a second before she is. So you kind of think, oh, you could do this, and then she works it out, and it's a very satisfying thing when she spots something that you've just spotted a second before. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's by design. And you're right though. The character of Javier on the other end of this phone completely made this movie for me because he's just it's such a kind and gentle performance and
Mm-hmm.
um, supportive performance. He's really fantastic in this, and Storm Reid as well. I think it's particularly hard to act well on with this kind of camera setup because like
I mean,
proper film cameras
you're
cost a
basically
lot of
just
money, and there's a lot
basically
of
just like
lighting and
staring
camera
into
work
a
involved
camera,
to make
right?
someone look and sound natural. And when you've got passive cameras like this that are designed to look and play like higher frame rate like phone cameras, it's actually a lot harder to be convincing. And I was so impressed. I love her as an actor anyway. Eh, in The Last of Us recently, she was incredible, and um, I thought she was really uh, amazing in this as well. And she's only 19, and for such a young performer to give herself so much space for authentic actions and reactions to things, and uh, make it sound believable for a 19-year-old to say and do. And that's something that actually impressed me about the movie in general, is that I think you're opening a massive can of worms when you try and write something that is about how 19-year-olds communicate in 2023. If I tried to write that movie, you'd know, because it would be the way I communicate by text is completely different to how 19-year-olds communicate by text, or just
I
the
mean, you can definitely tell when someone who's, when it's like a 45-year-old writing how they think 19-year-olds speak, for sure.
yes, precisely, absolutely. And so this was written really authentically. It just felt really natural. I really liked Megan Suri, who played her friend Vina as well. Their interaction felt really authentic and supportive and lovely.
Yeah.
Um, my only so I thought for the most part it worked pretty well. The part that I don't think was that effective was its final act, where the 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 place the thing happens that you kind of work out is going to happen, and um, there is a dramatic build up of tension, or at least that is the intention, but it's done over security cameras, and I don't think it ever is effective in building the kind of tension that really needed at that point. Um, but really, I'm nitpicking. And do you know what I thought about a lot watching this movie is the Blair Witch Project. I know it's a different style of presentation, but when
It's
Blair
still
Witch came out,
found footage is
yeah,
this is a version of
it's a
found
modern,
footage.
and uh, it's a really big wide swing. I know I haven't seen Searching, but it's a big swing to tell a story in this way, in a similar way that Blair Witch did. And you've got to you've got to commend it for being as successful as it is, because it does manage to tell a whole story really well. Honestly, after the first 10 minutes, I thought I'd have to turn it off, because it felt like I was trying to watch something whilst looking on my phone at the same time. Do you know what I mean? I found it really difficult to engage, because for the pre-missing section is a teenager interacting with technology, so it's cuts between apps, and it's actually not hard to follow what's going on, but it's hard to focus on one thing. And I was really worried that it would feel like looking at my phone whilst trying to watch a thriller, but actually it does slow all that down, as it should done. So it was very cleverly made, and I think your mileage will vary as to how effective that is for you. But I'm definitely going to go back and watch Searching after this, because it is intriguing.
And yeah, I think for me, I don't think that the I know what you're talking about with the tension buildup. I think that it's interesting because I think it's like a switch in style from this sort of screen set film to a more found footage style for that last act in particular. And I think the switch itself is actually kind of jarring, um, a little bit jarring. But I think for me, and I don't usually complain about this, but there's definitely going to be bits that like there's a thing that I noticed really early on where she's working out what's trying to work out what's going on, where I'm like, how long is it going to take you to notice this? Like, how long is it going to take you to notice this, to me, very obvious thing? And there's a few things like that. And I don't think that's a
Yeah.
problem with a mystery story, but there's kind of like one too many. There's kind of one too many of
Yeah,
those
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
to keep it from being like truly great.
Hmm.
Um, but again, like this kind of film is anchored by performance, and Storm Reid is legitimately great.
She's
She's very
so
authentic,
good.
very authentic, very um, what's the right word here? Authentic is the best word, but there's another word I'm trying to think of that I can't remember. Empathetic, maybe, like very, very natural, very, very understandable in her reactions, and it's just a sign of
Mm,
a great performer reading a good script,
mm.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's magnetic. You can't take your eyes off her when she's performing, and she doesn't overplay anything, and she just feels um, very authentic. But even the way she conveys her emotions as well. And
Hmm.
I mean, I've been saying, I've been watching The Last of Us, thinking the same thing about Bella Reed as well. And when I saw them together in the same episode, it's just like this is two careers that we are seeing at the real beginning, seeing all this potential in front of them. It's really exciting for me to see where they're going to go.
Yeah, 100%. They're both legitimately great, and the episode they share in The Last of Us, in particular, is one of the
Mhm.
highlights of the series. Um, I think, anyway.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, then, what are you going to give Missing out of 5? How many stars will you assign to Missing?
Well, it's a really solid 3-star movie for me. Like I do enjoy a nice, straightforward detective movie where the clues unfold to further clues and basically everyone Scooby Doo's their way to a conclusion. I think it's quite a nice old fashioned format now. So it's a
Yeah,
3-star movie from me.
yeah, and I agree. It's a 3-star for me as well. I think I really, really, really liked Searching. I think Searching is a little more solid throughout. Um, and I think, just to be clear, I think that Storm Reid is an incredible young actress, but I think John Cho just has a few years of experience on her, and I loved him in Searching
Mm.
a lot. Plus, Searching has this one has a pretty emotional intro that sort of highlights, um, why Storm Reid's character sort of is feeling the way she's feeling with the loss of her father. But the intro to Searching, I think, was far like is very emotionally upsetting, and really like hammers home. Like the dad character, John Cho's character in that movie, is a little bit overprotective, and the intro does a much better job of setting up why he is the way he is than I think this movie
Mm.
does. So the context, I think, is a little bit better. But again, this is a totally solid movie. It's fun. It's totally fun. It's a great mystery with a couple of great performances, and this is me just nitpicking the shit out of it because I need something to say about it. You should definitely watch this movie. Yeah, that's what I got.
Cool. All right,
Yeah,
I will.
yeah.
So
Right.
what's our next movie?
So we're gonna move
Yeah,
on.
okay. I'm going to leave the summary to you for this one. Please summarize the plot of our next movie.
All right. So the next movie we're going to talk about is the 2023 Hindi language action thriller film Pathaan, or I think Pathaan. Pathaan. I'm going to butcher
Yeah, you can go with
most
Pathaan.
of
That's fine.
most of the language in this. I am sorry ahead of time, but this is directed by Siddharth Anand and starring Shah Rukh Khan, or SRK for short, and Deepika Padukone, John Abram, Dimple Kapadia, and Ashutosh Rana. And it is apparently, I wasn't aware of this going in, but the fourth film in a franchise of spy films. And it is just ridiculously great from front to back. Um, Basically, the plot is that a few years ago, the Indian government revokes Article 370, which is special blah 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 to do with Kashmir and Jammu. I'm sorry for that is the worst summary just ever. And one of the Pakistani generals who is unhappy with this, and to be fair, maybe that's rightly so, contacts the head of a secret terrorist organization called Outfit X, who's headed by Jim. Uh,
Jim.
yeah. And at the same time, and he tells him, like, I want chaos, like, make chaos for me. So Jim comes up with a big master plan. And on the other side, the good guy, who is played by Shah Rukh Khan, He's called Pathaan, and he works for Raw, which is the good guys' spy agency, research and analysis wing, apparently. And he sets to chasing Jim and tracking down Jim's plan and foiling it to save the day. And um, I don't even know how to summarize the rest of the plot of this movie because it involves a theft in Russia. It involves personal history between many of the characters. Uh, there are um, flashbacks within flashbacks. The big like thing that Jim is going to do is unleash a bioweapon. Um, and I think actually the easiest way to summarize this is that if you can remember the plot of Mission Impossible 2, then basically that's what's happening here.
It really is.
It's like this is a movie made by the people who really 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 liked Mission Impossible 2, basically.
Oh, they
Um,
love
and
a
that
bunch of movies.
and that is not a complaint on my part. But yeah, the basic
Mm.
plot is that they're trying to find and stop this bioweapon, which they stole, which they help to steal, and then have to help steal back. And then like there's some double crosses, and like I just don't want to tell you too much about the plot because it just keeps doubling down. Like every time you're like, oh okay, let's see where they're going now. I see how they're going to wrap this. What? Because they just add another layer of ridiculousness onto it, and it is probably the most fun hour and or 146 minutes that I have had watching a movie this year so far. I don't know. How do you feel about it, Simon?
No, without a doubt. So, um, let me take you back to February the 18th, 2023. And I've taken a day off from my birthday to on the 21st to sit at home and play video games all day. And my wife revealed to me that, hey, guess what? I've also taken the day off so we can do something together. I'm like, that's awesome because we very rarely have time together. She's like, what do you want to do? Anything you want to do? And I was like, well, I want Mexican food. So we had Mexican food. And then I said, I want to see a movie as well. And I took the movies that were out and I'd seen the Pathaan trailer and shared it and just loved how over the top it was. But I had no idea it was out that week because I was going to go and see Ant-Man Quantumania. And I was like, I know we both want to see Ant-Man Quantumania, but the last couple of Marvel movies they haven't really hit for me. And this just looks like Just Cause 3 as a movie. It looks like it's
It
going to be a
really
good
does.
time. Yeah, even
Yeah,
if it's a bad movie, it's going to be a good time. And so I was back and forth. Maybe I was going to see Ant-Man. Maybe we shouldn't squander this opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And in the end, I said, fuck it. We're going to go to my favorite Mexican restaurant, which is La Casita in Gastown. And then just by the sheer serendipity, the cinema showing Pathaan was International Village, which is like a 2-minute walk away. So it's like, fuck it, we're going to go get Mexican food and then we're going to go and watch an over the top Indian movie because I loved RRR and I want to watch more over the top movies like that. And so I was tanked up with Mexican food and tequila, 11:30 a.m. tequila, which is the best tequila. And then I went with my loved to go and watch this movie in an empty cinema. There was one guy at the back who wasn't there at the end. So it was basically me and my wife in an empty cinema. And it was the most fun. Even the pre-credit sequence was the most fun I've had in a movie in years and years and years. We just laughed for the whole damn thing. And what I love about this movie is that what I get a feeling about a lot of Bollywood and Tollywood and a lot of Indian movies is that they are they don't just love movies. They really want to reference movies and kind of uh, have elements in their movies that show how much they love other movies. And there's so many moments in this film that are callbacks to different movies and references to different movies and not just within their own like canon that they've got going on here, but it's a real cauldron of not just movie sequences but genres as well. It flips from action movie to high spy infiltration movie to romantic comedy, 20 minutes, like, and then it comes back into the kind of final act that makes you, if you thought Triple X was like kind of too rooted in the laws of physics, then you're going to love this movie because it makes these over the top Vin Diesel movies look kind of pedestrian. Like
Yeah, I was gonna say
it doesn't take its
this
foot off the accelerator at all.
this definitely this
Oh,
definitely
hello.
operates on the same wavelength as like Triple X3. And again, Mission
Yeah.
Impossible 2. Um, it's definitely, and like the later Fast and Furious movies, in that they are like utterly ridiculous and completely sincere about it. Which the same thing we said about RRR, basically. And
Hmm.
honestly, I watched Bahubali Parts 1 and 2 recently, and also Brahmastra Part 1 Shiva. And same thing. Like, I don't think all those movies are of the same quality, but they have that same general sincerity that I think is what really sells them for me.
Hmm.
Um, and just also like they're clearly concerned with having a great time, and it feels like Shah Rukh Khan is having just the best time being the most extreme version of a cool spy you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like like I don't know, take it's kind of like it's something that I think even Tom Cruise couldn't really sell in Mission Impossible 2. He's just so
Hmm.
like wonderfully charismatic, and also just aloof enough and just quick-witted enough. It's like all of the it's like all of the best parts of all of the best spies and none of the drawbacks, right? It's but like dialed to 11. So just be aware, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Dialed to 11 is the thing to remember about it. It's kind of like just the Just Cause series of games. You're right in that it's very much like a 14-year-old's idea of spy movies, and I'm
Absolutely.
and
And
I'm so
that's
on board with that, like so on board. And at this point, I'm wondering why we don't have Shah Rukh Khan in movies like John Wick, you know, or
I felt
something
the
like
exact
that.
I felt the exact same after watching RRR. Like, get Ram Charan in like Triple X. That's where he belongs in that kind of movie. And I'm sorry, Deepika Padukone,
Yeah,
help me. She was in Triple X3 and is wonderful in Triple X3. There is so much potential for taking these massive Indian movie stars and slotting them into American action movies.
yeah,
And if you want any idea about how massive these stars are, there's one section in this movie that is my favorite section. That is a fight on a train that has a superstar cameo, and you have no, like, for me, I had no idea who this person was, but the way it's shot and the way it's delivered just tells you there's so much cinema language here that tells you this is a big deal. And when I
yeah.
researched him afterwards, it turns out he's absolutely huge. And then you can find cinema reactions of crowds going crazy because they didn't make it public that this guy turns up. And apparently, it's basically like Keanu Reeves dropping into a Tom Cruise movie, like unannounced.
But yeah, when you're right, when Salman Khan like lands in the train and they proceed to have
Yeah,
like a big, and the fight leading up to that point is already a pretty amazing
yeah,
single take fight scene with Shah
yeah.
Rukh Khan, and the whole thing about it, and then just the way they talk is amazing when they confront one another, because
Yeah.
Salman Khan like lands in this train and he's holding a drink, like a drink from like a fountain drink, and after he like beats up the guys, SRK is like, "Oh, you went to the corner store," and Salman Khan's like, "Pharmacy, baby, I got you some painkillers." Like, it's, and then
And
he's like,
the
and it's SRK's like, "Real men don't need painkillers," and Salman Khan like brushes his knee and he's like, "Ah!" it's, it's it's so
they have
perfect.
a wonderful post credit sequence where they're just comparing how much they hurt because they're old, but no
Yeah,
one else can do it because no
yeah,
one's as good as them. It's so much fun, even though you don't know the context for the fun. It's so much fun, and that's a real sign. There's so much energy in the filmmaking and the way it's shot, and there's so much language here that is recognizable, even if you don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
And the I love the fight choreography is great as well, but it keeps stacking. Like at one point when there's a three-way chase between two bikes and someone on like rollerblade, no, ice skates,
Speed skates, yeah.
speed skating. It's like, of course, there's that. And then in the final third, when someone's getting away and the other person decides to follow him in something he's never actually used ever before, it's just it's just so ridiculous. But of course, your mileage may vary. If you want a very deep and serious spy movie, this is not it. If you truly believe, like I do, that going to the movies should be escapism and fun, I don't think you're going to find a better movie this year. Really,
Certainly
like
not so
unless
far.
not so far. And I don't know. They've got another one coming out in November, so maybe that movie. But Western movies, even with their over-the-top action films, love to have their serious moments. And this film was like, we're just going to have fun. And you got to pay attention because at one point they go 3 flashbacks deep. Like, they love their flashbacks. The first half of this movie is one extended flashback. And when
With
it ends, you're
flashbacks.
like, with flashbacks in it. And when it ends, you're like, oh, yeah, Jesus, I remember now that we're actually at this point. I'd completely forgotten. And so, yeah, Inception's got nothing on this film when it comes to dreams within dreams.
And
But
like
it's
just
so
to
much
hammer
fun.
home too, like this is the kind of movie where when the good guy and the bad guy and the bad guy is just wonderfully charming as well. Um
Jim,
Jim, played by his name's gone out of my head.
John Abraham.
John Abraham, yeah. He him and SRK have their big showdown at the end, and they have a fist fight so intense they basically knock a building over. And like that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
This movie is ridiculous in all the ways that I love about movies like The Fast and Furious and Triple X3 and all of that kind of stuff. And it's a really well executed version of that.
and
And
don't forget that there's full musical numbers as well. Just if you imagine Triple X, but with a full like choreographed musical number with Vin Diesel getting down with everyone,
which
then that's what
honestly,
you
having
get in this
seen
as
that
well.
there's two big musical numbers in this, one that's in the movie and one that's like the credit sequence, and
Mm.
as with RRR, it makes me question why every movie doesn't have a musical number during the credit
Right,
sequence.
right, exactly.
Um,
On that note, Dora and the Lost City of Gold has a musical number to close out the movie, written by Brett McKenzie of the Muppets fame, and it is absolutely amazing. And every film should have this.
I think you're missing out Oscar winner Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords and
That's
Muppets.
right. That's right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, this movie is definitely over the top, and my wife has historically, like, whenever I'm like, we should watch an Indian film, she's like, I don't want to watch a musical. She has no interest in musicals at all. And
Mm,
usually there's, and I would just say that, like, if that's your sort of, you have an idea of what Indian film is like, as I did even a year ago, don't let
mm.
that stop you, man. Like, this is on Prime now, and you can watch it, and it's great.
Yes.
And let me just say too, like, again, SRK Shah Rukh Khan, like, he's so magnetic, even when he's being ridiculous. And
Hmm.
Jim Abrams has, John Abraham has I think my favorite line delivery in the whole movie towards the end when he finally like lays out his plan to like the good guy like general, and he's like, if you don't do this, I will destroy blah 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 blah. So how's that, guys? Yeah, like it's such a wonderful, it's an amazing, like, psychopathic but ridiculous tone switch, and I love it. Yeah.
Is it as good as Bottoms Up?
I mean, honestly, that wasn't even. I couldn't even go back and say it now and remember it now. But there are so many good line
Yeah,
deliveries from SRK in this
yeah,
movie that, yeah, like
yeah.
I particularly like that the whole movie. There's one. I don't want to spoil it exactly, but the whole movie, everyone's bothering him about his long hair, and there's like a final joke in the movie about it that I just thought was so perfect. But yeah, so what
How many
then? How many
stars?
stars for Pathaan for you, good sir?
This is a wonderful 4-star movie from me. How about you?
Yeah, it's a 4 star for me as well. It's definitely one of the most fun movies I've seen this year, and it's a solid 4 stars.
Yes.
Um, and I look forward to Tiger 3, in which will be coming out later this year, November, I think, which
Hmm.
is the third movie in the Tiger series, but the fifth movie in this like shared universe of spy movies. And apparently, SRK will be in it, at least in a cameo as Pathaan. So
Okay,
I'm
I'm
looking
there.
forward to that. And
Yeah,
I think the rest of the series are also on some combination of Prime and Netflix, so they are around for you to watch, and I fully intend to do that.
yeah, fantastic.
So, yep,
Good. Well, should we wrap it up there?
yes, we definitely should. So thank you everyone for listening to us ramble on about the movies. We love each and every one of you, and if you are new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, thanks for sticking around. We like you. If you are a patron, if you subscribe on Patreon, we do have bonus content every week now. This week we're going to be talking about the super uplifting topic of Jonathan Major's recent arrest and allegations, uh, which is just terrible. We're just going to go on the record and say it's terrible. And the whole situation is terrible, but he's a garbage human, so he should stay arrested. But anyway, but now we have bonus content for patrons. But if you like what you've heard, you could also support us by subscribing, liking this particular episode, or giving us a 5 star review on your podcasting platform of choice. Those things actually help immeasurably. You can find us on the social medias. You can find me at SmatthewAF, and you can find Simon at Temporary Pen on the Twitters and the Instagrams for you as well. Is that right? That's not right, is it?
I mean, sure.
You're not
I'm.
really
Oh
on.
no, no, my Instagram's private. No, no, just Twitter for me.
Yeah, just Twitter, right? And you can find the show on the socials at Awesome Friday CA. We record this here in Vancouver on the ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And one last time, thank you so much for listening and for joining us on this Awesome Friday.
Bye.